Hey guys. Um, so I am going to start trying to put out a little more of this style of stuff. I'm going to call it the Forge. Cold McDonald's coffee. Um, so you'll have to pardon me. I write everything down so that way I can remember exactly what I need to say, and so that way, it doesn't come across as I'm stumbling or anything like that. But I call this the Forge because a couple of reasons. This is a knife shop. I deal with metal, and I also love the Lord. So with those two parallels, when something like a knife is made, it goes through heat and pressure in a fire. So I don't do much forging here. I use a forge mostly for heat treat, but it's an understandable and relatable thing. So there's a parallel to the heat and the pressure of a forge. So when we walk with the Lord in faith, the hardships and the struggles and the things that stretch us, which we do a lot of that in knife making, and it causes us to recognize and rely on the Lord. So the forge has a whole lot of heat and pressure and those things if you use a hammer, and so in my thoughts, this is going to be maybe help someone, anybody, cope with pressures, and to find that God is relatable to everyone. It's just not for just me. It's not for just somebody else. He is for everyone. And I'll speak a little more on this here in just a minute. But if y'all like this kind of stuff, hit the thumbs up, please. It kind of shows me that there's an interest. Of course, I'll probably just put it out anyway. This is just gonna, help someone, whether it's my next door neighbor, somebody across the world. This is just what it is gonna be. And I'll kind of label these pretty good. So we'll go ahead and get started with the very first one. So I was sitting this morning in the shop here, and I usually have I have a widget on my phone, however you say that, and I normally have one sent to my widget every day, and some of those are, we kind of all know them, and they've had some from Genesis all the way to Revelations, and it's overall a generally pretty good app, and it has Bible verses every day on there, and it changes every day. But this one in particular kind of made me scratch my head, and it was kind of it lacked a whole lot of context. So I was kind of like, what's that about? The verse and the Bible verse was Romans chapter 1 verse 6. It says, "You also are among those Gentiles who are called to belong to Jesus Christ." So I was kind of like, well, who is he talking about? Which I kind of had a good idea of, the context of it. But to somebody that was maybe new at the Bible, um, they might not have the best ideas of who they were even talking about. Um, so I went back to the Bible and I looked at all the verses that come down. I started at verse 1 and read all the way through to verse 6. And verse 5 and 6 make sense together. So here is verse 5. So through him we received grace and apostleship. So who is through him? So him usually, and this is Paul's words, through him means Jesus Christ. So through Jesus we received grace and apostleship. So the whole time that Jesus was with the apostles, the first 12 apostles, that's what they done. They learned how to be apostles. It wasn't until he went and died on the cross that we received grace. So through him we received grace and apostleship to call all, notice all, the Gentiles. So what does that mean? So back in the day, in Bible terms, they had Jews and Gentiles. So there was two different groups of people that were, well, there's more than that, but they had a good idea of there was two separate groups of people. So there's Jews and there's Gentiles. So the Jews were Jesus followers, the Gentiles were not. And, well, of course, you get into a whole lot of that, Jew and Gentile. One was circumcised and one wasn't, but it's all kind of, But right here is the main point of this: to call all the Gentiles to the obedience that comes from faith for his namesake. So they were calling everyone to be apostles, not just Jews. And that's kind of what the ministry is going to in this chapter. Or, well, it's already been there. So this is like 20 years later, after Jesus was resurrected. But I'm going to read it all together. So, through him we received grace and apostleship to call all the Gentiles to the obedience that comes from faith for his namesake. And you also are among those Gentiles who are called to belong to Jesus Christ. So, who is he talking about now? I think that he is talking to us. And we Gentiles? Yeah, sure. Because we weren't before, if you're saved and baptized, if before, I don't know how to say that properly. But you were Jews. Well, no, wouldn't be that. But you were not saved. You were not born a Jew. So you're a Gentile. But I think he was talking to he's talking to everybody. So we receive the grace and the apostleship that comes when we get saved and baptized. I had some other stuff written down here. So, the gospel gave Paul and the church grace and apostleship. So the gospel is the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. That's the whole gospel message. And one reason those two gifts were given was to produce obedience to the faith. So, if you're obedient to the faith, wouldn't you be an apostle? Wouldn't you want to share the gospel and the grace and all the good things that come from being a follower of Jesus? I would. So I found a guy on here that was, his last name was Clark. And it's not Clark's Kentucky Knives or anybody like that, but it was a fairly old thing. And it says, without the grace, favor, and peculiar help of God, he could have not been an apostle. Wow. So Paul not being an apostle, without grace, favor, and the help of God, he could have not been an apostle. That's a whole lot. But what boils down in the end is this, what I've got written down right here. The gospel is big enough and great enough for the whole world, and it must go out to impact all the nations. The life-changing good news. So the life-changing good news is Jesus. And I hope that kind of clears these verses up. But like I said, whenever I read it, I was kind of like, what might they be talking about? And so I went back and kind of figured it out. But we received grace and apostleship to be obedient to faith in Jesus Christ. But verse 6 kind of sums everything up. You are among those Gentiles who are called to belong to Jesus. That is for everyone. That's not any kind of race. That's not any kind of anything else. We are all called to be followers of Jesus. So that's maybe a short, I don't know, I'm up to 13:30. But man, it doesn't get any easier than that. There's other examples of that message right there. I just thought it was interesting that you could kind of connect those verses to the entire Bible. And that verse not only connects us to Jesus, but it connects Jesus to the world. And that's kind of what the whole gospel is about. This has been The Forge. If y'all liked it, please leave a thumbs up. Leave a comment. If there's anything I can do better, tell me. If I don't like it, I can delete it. And I hope y'all have a blessed day. Study the Bible more. At least read a verse a day. And keep the heat and pressure off of you. Because the further you get in with Jesus, the better off you'll be. See you guys.